Hi everyone, and welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about fashion and wheelchairs, or just in general, fashion and physical disabilities. So this is going to be a two-part video series, one being for the summer, which is what we're in currently in Australia. Then once June and July hit, I'll be doing a winter edition. First of all, not all physical disabilities are the same. Or because one person has trouble with one thing doesn't mean you're going to have trouble with it. We all have our own challenges, and it's finding a way to overcome those challenges that are unique to everyone else. So one of the things that I find easier is no buttons. I know my limitations, and because I only have the full use of my right hand, I cannot do buttons that well. The smaller the button, the harder it is. So things like a button-up shirt don't do it for me. And one of the things we'll be talking about later in the video is actually adaptive clothing and my thoughts on it. But for the most part, me and buttons do not get along. Because we just spoke about the buttons and button-up tops, let's talk about the tops in general. For the most part, I recommend t-shirts and looser fitting nice tops. But if you're like me and like dresses and skirts, then we have different factors to consider, considering length. So I have two skirt options. I actually do have a mini skirt. But when I wear this mini skirt, I usually pair it with tights. But then we have the other skirts that go down past my knee, but are not long enough. But even within that, they're not long enough to actually reach the wheel. That is also something to consider as well. Because when you sit, your torso compresses. And what may have looked long when you're standing shrinks considerably when you're sitting. So a longer skirt that goes past your knees but isn't long enough to touch your toes is a good option. So we're going to talk dresses now, and that is the same as skirt length. I usually do pair shorter dresses with different colored tights that I own, but there have been a couple of times where a couple of the dresses that I do own are too long. And this usually means before I'm sitting down, I have to push the skirt back and sit on it. Now, you might think this chick is crazy. Why doesn't she go with a shorter skirt? A shorter dress, I mean. I actually like dresses regardless if they're long or short. But it's also once you get somewhere where you find what you're comfortable in. So, a maxi dress is usually a good idea, because depending on that length, they're still long enough for you to be comfortable. But they're not as long if you are actually trying to wear something that won't get stuck in your wheel. Right. One of the things that I love doing is I love swimming. I have about 3 or 4 pairs of swimmers, both top and bottom, and they're usually a size up from my normal size. If, like me, like I said, you're top heavy and you have a bit of a fear of your girls falling out, I recommend a rush vest. But I also recommend board shorts. And this is what I recommend regardless of your clothing size. Especially within tighter t-shirts, go a size up. If you think a pair of pants aren't going to fit you right when you sit and you squish your gut in when you sit, then go a size up in your pants as well. Also shorts. Shorts can be your friend. Now let's talk adaptive clothing, shall we? Adaptive clothing in general is actually a very good idea. But in some cases, especially depending on where you live in the world, it can actually be very, very pricey. For instance, Here in Australia, we do have a system that is called the National Disability Insurance Scheme, NDIS for short. I do know that you can get some of your adaptive clothing through the funding, but depending on who you are, I probably wouldn't recommend it. Like I said, depending on where you go, it can be very pricey. So adaptive clothing, while it would be good for me, isn't necessarily something I'm willing to purchase. The only piece of adaptive, I guess you could call it clothing, is the straps I use for my joggers. The ones I wear with my splints. That is the only time I've ever had anything to help put something on and off. And speaking of my joggers, we are now going to go to a clip filmed earlier in the day explaining my tips and tricks for shoes. Hi, now we're downstairs and I'm about to show you my picks for good shoes. I have several pairs of shoes. What woman doesn't? And now I'm going to show you some of my picks. So first up, we've got the going out pairs. So most of these are just slip-ons. So the two, the white and the tan up the back, are my high heels, which I don't usually use that much going out. But if I do go somewhere nice, at least I have a nice pair of shoes. Then I've got my favorite pair of boots. They're just little ankle boots. Nothing fancy. So here's a close-up. Now I'm going to switch it up and show you what I use every day. And we have these three pairs of shoes. So these are pretty much my everyday shoes. There's a couple of jogger sneaker types and a nicer pair of white shoes. So I have one more pair of shoes to show you. And those are the joggers I wear with my splints. So as you can see, I wear splints to help me walk. And while these aren't particularly fashionable, they do have their uses. So those are my tips and tricks for clothing when you have a physical disability. Let me know down in the comments below if you have any recommendations and what you do with your clothing. With all that said, thank you for watching this video and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.